Attention unauthorized spaceship. What is your call sign?
Let's go with Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard.
He said it! He said it!
Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. So it's once again time to talk.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars. Don't let them end.
Yes, we got our new Star Wars movie for the year, Rogue One. Let's talk about it. So as in all franchise series, I really quickly want to give you my rundown of the previous movies and where they stand in my current hierarchy. So up at the top, my personal favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi. Yes, it's the best, and I will fight you on it. Then next we got Empire Strikes Back. Then I went ahead and put The Force Awakens there. I really enjoyed it. Then A New Hope. Then, of course, Revenge of the Sith. Then The Phantom Menace. And at the bottom, the worst piece of shit that Star Wars ever produced, Attack of the Clones. Fuck that movie, it's terrible. But anyways, Rogue One. Where does Rogue One fit on this? Let's talk about it, shall we? So Rogue One is brought to us by director Gareth Edwards, who brought us 2014's Godzilla, which I haven't seen yet, so I can't really judge his previous work. So let's judge this work. So the plot is pretty much simple, and I think we all know it. This takes place after Revenge of the Sith and before A New Hope, and it is the story of the rebel crew that stole the Death Star plans that kind of set everything in motion for the original trilogy. Without getting into too many specifics or spoilers, that's our plot. Pretty easy, so let's just get into the characters. Who is in our band of rebels? Of course, the big star that's on the posters and all the ads and everything is Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones. I won't get into too much of her character because it's spoiler heavy, but she is kicking some real ass. She's playing this middle ground of she doesn't want to be part of the rebels, but she definitely doesn't trust the Empire. Kind of doing this back and forth thing, and being a general badass. They really don't tie her up trying to give her a love interest too much. She's just really driven by, a lot of stuff going on in her life, and I really enjoyed her. I love a good kick-ass brunette whenever I can, and she did some really awesome stuff. I really enjoyed her character. I guess the commanding officer of the Rogue One squadron is Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna. He did a fantastic job. So his character, he said that he's been fighting with the rebellion since he was 6, which kind of makes sense because this is roughly 18 to 20 years after Revenge of the Sith and after the Empire, became a thing. And, he's definitely war-weary and, just beaten down. But he still, really has a feel for the rebellion and things like that. But he's just tired. It's been so long. And are they actually getting anywhere kind of thing. And it's played off really well, and I very much enjoyed his character. Now, my absolute favorite character of this entire movie, K2SO, voiced by the amazing Alan Tudyk. You can keep your BB-8. This is the droid I've been looking for. He was so awesome. I loved everything he did. He was the comic relief, but he wasn't just the comic relief. He was a full, developed, interesting character, but, I just loved everything he did. Every moment he was on screen, he was doing something awesome. I really enjoyed this character. He is absolutely my newest favorite, maybe Star Wars character, but definitely my favorite droid. Yeah, being the comic relief in Star Wars tends to be a real annoying character. You got your, C-3PO or your Jar Jar. But he definitely doesn't toe that line at all. He is great. Not annoying at all. I absolutely loved him. So good. So good. Oh, Alan Tudyk is the best. God damn it, he's the best. Anyways, then we got Chirrut Îmwe. I don't know. Played by Donnie Yen. He is a former guard of a Jedi temple who might be Force sensitive. We don't know. It's not fully explained if he is or is not Force sensitive. He is definitely a believer in the Force and user of the Force. He is blind. I don't know if I said that, but he's blind. And we've seen him kicking ass in a bunch of the trailers and stuff. He's a pretty awesome character. I really like what he did. It was a lot of fun. He's a pretty awesome guy. And then he's got his buddy, Baz Balbus, played by Wen Zhang. And he is like friggin' Rambo. He's Rambo of Star Wars. He's always shooting around a bunch of guns, shooting stuff, running in, being awesome. He was really great. I really enjoyed what he did. A lot of fun. Really awesome character. I liked him. And to round out our squadron, of course, we got our pilot, Bodi Rook, played by Riz Ahmed. He was really cool. I don't got a lot of things to say about him. So he was a former Empire pilot who defected to the rebellion. So he had a lot of inside information about the rebellion. He did a good job. I don't have any complaints about him. I just don't have anything specific to say about him per se. Forrest Whitaker has a role in it. Don't want to give too much away about what he's doing, but he does all right. He's not in a lot of the movie, but he's there. All right. Of course, we got our main bad guy of the movie, Orson Krennic, played by Australia's own Ben Mendelsohn, or as they like to call him, Bendo. So he's the director of the Death Star project, I guess you could say. He's the project manager. But he's really great. He's definitely middle management, which is kind of awesome. He can, control his own little world, but he's definitely got people above him, pushing him. There may be other villains, I don't know. I'll get into in spoilers. But he is pretty much the main villain. And pretty great. Again, towing that line of, being in control, but still being controlled. And, pretty intimidating. Does his thing really well. Very much enjoyed him. One last nod for characterization, and I won't talk too much about him because it's spoiler heavy. But Mads Mikkelsen, of course, has a role in this, and it's awesome because he was also in Doctor Strange. There we go. Big year for Mads Mikkelsen, I guess. So what worked well about Rogue One? Well, for one, this is the first Star Wars war movie, if that makes any sense. So outside of the actual war being in Star Wars, it's not really a war franchise per se. I mean, there's battles and things, but it's a lot of, I like to say, fun war. It's a lot of pew, 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 and we blew a thing up, we're all heroes. It didn't really deal a lot with the real aspects of war, the people on the ground, people dying, the dark sides of war. And this one really goes into that. It pulls a lot of stuff from Vietnam, World War II, and even the current, Iraqi freedom and Desert Storm type of war as well. A lot of the insurgent types of warfare. And I really like that it pulled in real wars to bring in, this war thing. And people are really dying in this. Yeah, you see in the other Star Wars, you see people fall over. Now, obviously, people were in the Death Star when it blew up, but you didn't really get a sense of people dying. So many stormtroopers die in this movie, and in horrible fashions. This is a really rough movie with that. You really see people dying, and people caring about the people that dying, and maybe some PTSD added in. And this is really a visceral war movie. It's not so much the pew 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 fun going around. This is war as hell. Like this is that type of movie, and I really enjoyed that. Somewhere Star Wars hasn't really gone, and I really like that. Some of the episodes of the Clone Wars sort of touched on that. I don't know if Rebels has. I haven't really gotten into that show yet, but some of the Clone Wars did. But obviously that's geared more towards kids and couldn't really dive into that. This goes full head force into, that kind of thing. The other thing I really liked about this, being that it's such a visceral thing, it's very force-less movie, I guess you could say. There's not a lot of talk of the Force. There's only one lightsaber. Outside of, the one character maybe being Force sensitive, there's not a lot of talk of the Force. This is definitely the grunts on the ground, your pilots, your ground forces. It's not so much the mystical Force thing. This is more sci-fi than sci-fantasy, I would say. This is closer to Starship Troopers or maybe even Star Trek rather than Star Wars with all its fantasy. And I like that. I don't want to see the Force go away at all, but I do like to see something different out of this franchise, and I definitely got that. A lot less Force talk, a lot less midichlorians, if you will. So this movie also is a big love letter to the fans, I think, like the real hardcore fans. Not going into too many spoilers, but, kyber crystals are brought up and are very lightly explained. So if you're not really into a lot of the mythos of Star Wars, you might be a little lost with this. It's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of Easter eggs and nods, which you're absolutely not going to understand unless you've been a Star Wars fan and are you really deep into the lore. And I really like that, being that The Force Awakens was much more to bring everybody back into Star Wars. This one's to take the fans that have been into Star Wars this whole time and be like, here's something for you to enjoy. And I like that. Fan service isn't always a bad thing, because you gotta give a little bone out to your big fans. You gotta give them some prizes for studying your movies for so long, and they really did that, and I like that a lot. And that goes with this movie really tying into the series really well. Obviously, the filming is different than all the other movies, but there's nods to things from the original trilogy and things from the prequel trilogy, really tying the two trilogies together, and I really like that as well. It's not embarrassed to mention the previous, the prequels that everyone hates. And it ties in very well with A New Hope, obviously. So it does a really good job of towing that line as well, and it was really good at doing that. So no movie is perfect, so where does Rogue One fall short? Well, my first nitpick is going to be the name, because I actually like Rogue One, but the official title is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Drop the Star Wars story. We know it's Star Wars. Come on, give us some freaking credit. Small nitpick, but yeah, that annoyed me ever since they first brought out the name, A Star Wars Story. That's dumb. Don't do that. So my real nitpick, though, of course, is this movie is depressing as hell. Like a good war movie, you're like, oh, why is life worth living? Like most after Star Wars movies, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. That was really fun. Yeah, this one, like, oh, why do we exist? I mean, it could be good or bad because it got me to that place, but man, it's a depressing movie for sure. And being that it's a war movie dealing with a specific platoon, I feel like the ties between the characters aren't as strong as they could have been. There's some ties between, a couple here and there, but they don't feel like a full platoon ever. So when they get together at the end to, do the big raid, you're not quite as invested because they haven't quite tied together as much. It just didn't quite. I didn't quite feel the links between all our main characters being in this big group, and I think that could have been built on a little bit more. It could have been strengthened a lot more. I know they had a lot of story to get through in introducing a lot of these characters, but it really felt like they were all just strangers shoved into a platoon together, and here you go. So that felt a little short for sure. But now it's time to get into spoilers. spoilers. Put up the signs. Click BB8. BB8. There we go. Click BB8 if you want to skip to my wrap up and not get into spoilers. But I'm doing some spoilers now, so get ready. Here we go. You ready? All right. So first thing I got to bring up, and is a major thing I noticed and bothered me, is CG Peter Cushing. So, of course, Peter Cushing was in A New Hope and, was a big to-do on the original Death Star. So, having him in there was a good way to tie this together, and I thought when I first saw him it was just going to be a nod, but he was like a full character, and he's been dead for 20 years. And they also did a de-aging of Leia in the end as well, like a CG of that. And it wasn't a bad effect. He looked human, and someone I know that didn't know he died didn't think anything of it till she was told he was dead. But I'm worried about the implications of a CG character like that. Because if we can do that, then how long till there's a Justin Bieber music video with Kurt Cobain in it? I know when celebrities die, part of their will is their likeness rights, and that goes to someone in their family. So obviously someone in the Cushing family had to sign off on using his likeness in this movie, and I'm sure they got, paid to do that. But it's a slippery slope doing this. What stops us from having all dead actors in all our movies now? Or just inventing actors. Let's make a perfect man with this CG that obviously looks really good, and we don't need regular actors, just voice actors. It's kind of scary. It works in this movie, I think. They didn't hurt his character or defame him or anything like that, but I'm worried about the wider implications of bringing back a dead character in a movie like this. Maybe I'm worrying for nothing. Maybe it's just me, but it's just something I really noticed that really bothered me. Peter Cushing, this great actor who did so many good things, the Frankenstein movies in the 60s and things like that. And, we're just slapping him into a movie. I mean, he's dead. He doesn't care right now, but I don't know. It's something that's really been going through my mind and ugh. But yeah, that's a thing. So I want to talk about the ending real quick too as well. So obviously going into this knowing that it's between two movies, it's going to end a certain way. And so you really only got two options. One is that, they give them away that they get out, and then the nitpickers of the world will go, oh, why aren't these characters in the rest of the movies? And it's obviously they didn't plan for this. Just enjoy what you got. Why you gotta be a dick? But people are obviously going to do that. So the way around that, of course, is kill off everybody, and that's what they went. They're all dead. They're not in the other movies because they're fucking dead. I think I more care about this because I wanted to see more of these characters. Maybe we get a movie with them between Empire and Jedi, or between A New Hope and Empire. Just these in-between movies with this, squadron. I don't know. I mean, because if they do a Rogue 2, Rogue 2 was a squadron in the battle for Hoth, and I guess we could see where they go, but it's going to be all different characters. So I don't think we're going to get a sequel or anything based off this. And that kind of just goes to the depressing side. But I don't know. It felt like they just killed them because they didn't want to deal with the nitpickers of the world. And you can't let those guys push you around. I don't know. It's probably just me. This whole spoiler section seems to be just things that bother me, but that's just me. And the final thing, of course, in being this where it takes place, it's another Death Star. So everyone's complaint in The Force Awakens is that it's another Death Star, and now we have a Death Star in this. It's all Death Star. Hopefully Episode 8 we get something different, but it's definitely more Death Star. And it definitely plays a big role, the Death Star, in this, so it's there. I don't know. So let's wrap this movie up, shall we? What are my final thoughts? I wholly enjoyed Rogue One. It's something different from the Star Wars franchise that we haven't gotten before. It's fun, yet dark. You know, I love the nods to real wars. It's very visceral. I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. It's really fantastic. I don't know if it quite beat out Force Awakens, but there was no point where I was bored. I really enjoyed this a lot. So if I were to give it my rating, I'd definitely see this in theaters. Take your time, take your money. It's definitely worth seeing this movie in theaters. And definitely, I think you're going to enjoy it. Even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, you're going to, you're going to enjoy this movie. You might be lost at times, maybe, but I think you'll still enjoy it. And if you're part of the 1% of America that's destroying the world, and that's the 1% that don't like Star Wars, then I guess you're not going to like this because you're an asshole and you don't like Star Wars. Why don't you like Star Wars? Gee. That came out of nowhere. Anyways, see Rogue One. It's really good. I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Until next time, hold on to your hold slots.